Hey, what's up, guys? Happy New Year, and welcome to episode 6 of the Loper Show. Super stoked to have you guys here in 2025, and this is going to be the year, man. I'm telling you, this is going to be the year. So excited for the things that are happening, not only with the show, but we're building. And thanks to you guys, everybody that's liking the page, subscribing, sharing the video with their friends, man. You guys are absolutely killing it out there, and I just can't express my gratitude enough. So I wanted to start the show with saying thank you. I hope you had a great holiday. I know that I enjoyed mine. I was traveling a little bit. I went home to South Florida, and it was kind of cool, guys. Like when I was there, I actually got to do something really fun with my youngest son, Knox. We went to Pop Stroke, which is the really over-the-top, like super cool putt-putt experience that Tiger Woods is part owner in. And Pop Stroke, I think they have like 22 locations across the country right now. And it's really cool. I thought all the courses would be the same, but I went to the one in West Palm Beach where I'm from, and then I was with my girlfriend Jen in Port St. Lucie, and we went to the one up there, and both courses completely different. Like instead of like windmills and clowns and all that crap that you usually see with putt-putt, they actually have sand traps and different obstacles that you have to go to. Okay, maybe not sand traps. If you ask my son Knox, he's going to say white grass. But still, you have to putt out of that. It's a little bit thicker. And when you're greeted, like at the front of the building, when you go in to pay and set things up, it's kind of cool. They give you an actual tailor-made putter. So you're in it, man. Like there's not like any of those like lame-ass, putters, the big plastic rubber-looking things. No, these things are absolutely pro level. And it really does help because the putt-putt courses are... It's nothing to fuck with, guys. I mean, my son got up a couple of holes on me, and I was not happy about it. I ended up pulling out the victory. Don't worry, true believers. But yeah, I mean, it is absolutely so much fun for the whole family. And this is no ad for them. This is just, me telling you about something cool. I know they have one in Scottsdale, so Vegas, depending on where you might be traveling or where you might be living as you're watching this, you might be able to go check out Pop Stroke. But the one in West Palm was so dope. The one in West Palm is like 2 or 3 stories, and on the top story, in true Palm Beach style, there's a swimming pool. So like when you go, you can like multiple bars, swim up bar, like all that kind of stuff, right? Awesome food. But when you go, you pay when you get in, right? I think it was like $25 for adults, maybe $18 for kids or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but that's right around the price range. And when you get in, you pay one time. There's 2 different courses, and you can literally stay all day and play as much as you want. So you can go in, play around. Like we played 36 holes. We could have gone up to the pool, hung out. Like if I was with like an adult or something that they go in, they want to have some drinks. You can go up, have some drinks, do your thing, come back down, hit another 36, 18 holes, whatever your choice may be. I mean, it's an awesome experience. I did not expect that sort of, I guess, bang for your buck when I went in. You kind of think like Tiger Woods, there's a big name attached. This is probably going to be way expensive. And it really wasn't. And the food is dope. Food's really good. I had a great time. So if you're ever around a Pop Stroke, I highly suggest that. So last night was the debut of WWE Raw on Netflix. And this was kind of a big deal because this was like the first time that WWE programming, for all you wrestling fans out there, it wasn't on a network television or it wasn't on cable television. It was actually on one of these premium streaming services. And unlike the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, there were no glitches. The camera angles were actually different. I was a big WWE fan back in the day. My oldest son, Jaden, has grown into loving WWE, so I still watch it with him every once in a while, and him and I were going back and forth on text on what we thought last night, and it was kind of cool. You could see their effect over the WWE brand, because the camera angles were definitely different. Some of the drone video that they had was super sick, and they were live from the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, and that place is state of the art, man. Really cool. It almost looked like every person that was in the crowd had a drone sitting next to them, because there's like this little light bulb that lights up. And so when all the lights are off, since red is the color for WWE Raw, that's all you saw in the crowd was a bunch of red lights. I was like, oh my God, the drones are back. But no, it was just the Intuit Dome being super dope. The main event, CM Punk taking on Seth Rollins. Like that, what a great match that was. Those guys are just incredible workers. And we saw the return of some legends. Man, my heart was broken for Hulk Hogan. Like Hulk Hogan, he's got that new American beer. That's what it's called. I think it's made by Milwaukee's Best, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, he comes out with Jimmy Hart, who was his manager back in the day, right? The Mouth of the South. Hulk Hogan comes out. Hulk Hogan is, I don't know if he laid off the steroids or laid off the gym or what's going on, but he definitely looked like substantially smaller even since the Republican National Convention. And got booed out of the building. Like literally every time he paused in his speech, the crowd was booing so big. And it was funny in the recap after Raw was over, they did like this press conference recap show. They literally took the booing out and put cheering in. So, I mean, if you watched the live show, you were like, that is not how that went down. Yeah, you caught actually what happened. But, man, I was feeling bad for my man Hulk Hogan. And The Undertaker, he made an appearance for the first time in a while. The Undertaker came out with Rhea Ripley's? Is it Ripley? Yeah, Rhea Ripley. Like I said, I'm not super up on everybody in the WWE. She's super hot, but she won the women's title from Liv Morgan, who I had Liv Morgan on the radio show a couple times. She was a really nice lady, but she lost the title last night. Then The Undertaker came out on his motorcycle and gave Rhea a ride. It was pretty crazy. And it looks like this could be like the next thing. And they're calling it the Netflix era for WWE. So we'll see if the WWE can have another run like they did with the Attitude Era. So I want to transition. I have a very special guest on today. You know, all the talk since the beginning of December has been about the spotting of these drones all over the country, right? And then over the holidays, unfortunately, we had 2 terrorist attacks, one in New Orleans, one in Los Angeles, and we find out that these were American-born terrorists who, I mean, man, so many people in New Orleans lost their lives, and thank God, only minor injuries in Las Vegas, but still, you got to wonder what's up with this. And I have a guy that we're going to call Jake, who is a special operator, and he operates as a government contractor, and he's going to come on and the best he can answer some of our questions today. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on to answer some of our questions, obviously to the best of your ability, the things that you feel like, you're allowed to, the knowledge that you're allowed to pass on to us. Let's just put it that way. So I got to start right with what was an absolute phenomenon in the beginning of December. All of these drones, quote unquote drones that people are seeing. In your opinion, what the hell's going on, man?
Well, isn't it interesting that that's dropped out of the news cycle and you don't hear any more about it?
Yeah, it peaked like in the second week in December from what I saw on Google search. That was like the most attention it was getting, like second week in December.
Yeah. It's here's what I know about the drone program. Our government has many programs in place. I know about the drone program particularly because I was involved in space and timing issues with testing the drones back in 2000.
Oh, wow.
So the program has been here for a while.
Okay.
I believe that the program has shifted its intentions to monitoring citizens of the United States. Let me back up a little bit. There's a thing called OGA, which is other government agencies that you never hear anyone speak about.
Yeah.
You hear about the NIH, the DIA, you hear about all those things, but there are OGA 3-letter agencies that no one speaks about. No one speaks about them because they are highly top secret, and there are few people involved. Fortunately, I've been able to be involved in some of these OGA government entities. So, long story short, that gives me privilege to some information. The drone program that we currently have, in my opinion, has shifted to a warfare on U.S. citizens. Spying, intel gathering, eavesdropping, location monitoring, all of those things. And one of the reasons they've shifted is because the geolocation system for cell phones isn't as reliable as it used to be.
Interesting.
Because a lot of people are using the new black phones that are out.
Yeah, I've seen those. Yes.
Yeah, I have one.
Okay.
And it just, I think it's another intrusion. That's why they're not telling us what it is. They have the capability to see a mouse or hear a mouse fart from 500 miles away through a Reaper. I mean, everything that's surrounding these drones, in my opinion, has to do with monitoring the American public.
So they have the ability to be able to hear from that far in the sky?
Oh,
like what's going on the ground?
Well, I can tell you when I was in Afghanistan.
Okay.
They have a thing called an aerostat, which is a small balloon type deal full of cameras and microphones, and those cameras could pick up mice running through the desert at 2 miles.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that similar to what China flew over the United States a couple of years ago?
Exactly what China flew over the States a couple of years ago. Exactly. We call them aerostats in a combat environment, and they were all over Afghanistan. And what they did was help monitor the FOBs for the activity surrounding the FOB. So, you'd have a FOB, forward operating base.
Okay.
And it would be all gated in, and it'd have HESCOs, and it'd have all the barriers to keep bad guys out. But it didn't have much of a standoff as far as combat procedures go. So these aerostats would allow the FOBs aerial views of everything surrounding their FOB. So there would be guys sitting in the talk 24/7, watching these cameras. Similar to the drone activity, the drone activity. Every time our government is involved in something, here's something that a lot of people overlook. It hits the news cycle for a good 24 to 48 hours, maybe 72. That's all they talk about. And then it disappears. It disappears because the big news channels, the news media, most of it is linked to the government somehow. So someone gets a word down that you need to stop doing this, and they stop doing it.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, it almost immediately stopped, especially after, we're going to get to these terrorist attacks that happened around the first of the year. But right around that time, you heard nothing else about the drones. Like, that was gone.
Exactly. And it's all the media all at once. It's not just one media outlet after another.
Right.
It's all at once. It just disappears from the news cycle.
So your opinion, I just want to get this straight real quick. So your opinion is that these drones are our drones, and that's why obviously the government was going, "Hey, don't worry about it. Everything's fine. They're not here to harm us." And there was speculation that they were actually Chinese drones that were coming out of submarines. I mean, do these drones come from underwater or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I haven't seen a drone yet that can be submersed and launched.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that they did come out with and say was that China had a ship off of the East Coast, and they were calling it the mothership, and these drones were being launched off the mothership.
Uh-huh.
Most of the time, anything that's in the air can be tracked on radar.
Right.
Our radar is sophisticated enough to pick up these small things, especially if they're the size of a car.
Right. Yes.
So,
these things were huge.
So the whole thing, it's just like when China flew the one over the United States. It was about the size of a 48-foot school bus.
That's incredible.
We could see it in the sky. They were flying it during the day. These are all seeing how much they can penetrate our space. That's what it is. They're all intrusions on our sovereignty, and they're prodding and poking, trying to find a way in that's best for some sort of an attack.
Yeah, and it's nuts that we as a country would actually sell like government farmland, or not government farmland, but just farmland that backs up to government bases, like our, military bases. There's no way if you go over to China, like I could go tomorrow and go buy a place right next to some Chinese military base and just set up shop. There's no way that's going to happen.
Right. I think we're the only country in the world. I looked into this, I don't know, several years ago when the story first broke about China buying farmland. And I think all the countries that I've ever been in, I did some research. And you can't buy land as a non-citizen, period.
Right.
We're the only country in the world that allows these things to happen because of our so-called freedoms, which has put us all in jeopardy. And just that simple.
And just to reiterate what you said earlier, so you are not even speculating, you're saying that inside of these quote-unquote weather balloons are cameras and microphones that can pick up mice running on the earth.
Oh yeah.
Like from high above.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I've seen miles away. Well, you hear about the new modern snipers can shoot out to 3,000 meters. So optics is becoming a huge thing when it comes to defensive purposes. And some of these cameras are just unreal. I mean, you can see the burrow of a ground mole being made as he's going through the grass.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's literally like, these telegraph, what are they called? The things they look at the stars with.
Yeah, like a telescope.
Telescope, thank you. I was thinking telegraph for some reason. They're literally telescopes that are mounted on these things to look at stuff and search surroundings.
That's great. So like the actual consumer grade cameras and in televisions and microphones that we can buy have nothing on what's going on with military grade.
Have nothing in comparison.
That's so wild.
Absolutely not. There's technology, and I'm not versed in all of it, but I know gentlemen that are versed in activities that, if we were to talk about them, would blow our minds today. We couldn't do the rest of the show. We'd have to sit down with a bottle of bourbon and a cigar. Some of these things that I even hear are just mind-blowing because they're coming from within the industry. They're not out there in the public view yet. In 2025, I think a lot of this stuff is going to come out that the government is doing because Trump's back in.
Yeah.
I think the next 4 years is going to be real telling about what's going on. It's just like the whole thing about Facebook and Zuckerberg now. He's going to become a free speech platform all of a sudden.
Yeah.
All of a sudden because the Trump administration is coming back in.
It's kind of wild too.
Be honest about it.
Yeah, and he just invited Dana White from the UFC to become one of the board members of Facebook, or Meta rather.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who was, obviously been a big Trump supporter. I do love the team that Trump has assembled. I do think it's very interesting with RFK. You got Elon Musk, Vivek in there, and especially with this whole Doge project that they're going to do. I mean, do you think from your point of view as a government contractor that they would actually be able to, quote unquote, drain the swamp?
I think they're going to have a hard time doing it, but they're going to get it 90% gone.
Interesting.
That's what I think. I think a lot of this stuff is going to come to a screeching halt, and the stuff that we need and must have for a growing society will be put in place.
Okay.
But he's only got 4 years. And then I'm hoping, of course, the torch gets passed to J.D. Vance. And then, we'll go from there. We need a good 8-year run to clean this stuff up. I don't think anything's going to, I think things are going to happen, but I don't think enough is going to happen in 4 years.
Okay. Just backpedaling real quick back to the drones before we move on to the next topic. I just wanted to ask you this. So having this disappear sort of not only on the media, but out of the sky. I mean, you don't really see a lot of the videos on YouTube unless they're being suppressed now or other social media. This is a two-part question. Do you think they pulled back because they realized that people are starting to catch on? And then also, why were these placed primarily over New Jersey?
I think, well, to answer the first part of the question, they pulled back because they got caught. I mean, it's kind of like someone cheating in a marriage.
Right.
You get caught, you usually stop.
Gotcha.
So they got caught, they stopped. They didn't want to explain anything. They said, hey, shut her down for now. And that's what we're going to do now. More than likely, they're going to move the flights off coast, out over the ocean, probably 20, 25 miles out, and run them like that with Coast Guard monitoring operations. Pretty simple.
Do you know of any sort of craft that flies like anti-gravity?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that's somebody coming up with the Jetsons theory.
That is kind of like the Jetsons. If you want to be honest.
Exactly. I've been around military bases for the past 34 years, and top secret facilities all over the world.
Yeah.
And I've never even heard of that before. And I chuckled when I heard it on the news. I just thought it was somebody that was stoned out of their mind coming up with the Jetsons theory.
All right, so I was on the Department of Homeland Security's website, and this is straight from the website. It says 2025 Homeland Threat Assessment indicates that the threat of domestic and foreign terrorism in the homeland, meaning the United States, remains on high alert. Now, what does that mean from your point of view?
Well, that means guys like me, and there are a lot of us that do this government contracting, are to remain hyper-vigilant, carry our kit with us everywhere, and be ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Because things are going to happen. The government, they don't ever want to panic the public. And unfortunately, in our society, one thing goes sideways and people, look at COVID. We run out of toilet paper. It's just, it's amazing to me that people, instead of running out of food, we run out of shit paper.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me the priorities that the American people have. Where some of us are just ready for it all to happen.
Totally.
I'm not going to have to run out and buy that stuff, but to get to the main point, Al Qaeda has a plan, Taliban has a plan, ISIS has a plan. Unfortunately, we have some of those infiltrators in the United States, approximately 2,500.
Okay.
Last intel numbers that I got, and we can't monitor them all. So something that Trump has already put out to the intelligence community is that we are going to put more contractors on the payroll to start monitoring these groups in different locations.
And this would mean somebody like this Samsudeen Jabbar, who 42 years old, did the attack in New Orleans on New Year's Eve, going into New Year's morning at 3:30 in the morning, driving down Bourbon Street in an F-150 Lightning electric truck and just mowing people down. And then they found that he was there weeks earlier with Google glasses recording the entire area.
Yeah. It was a well-planned out attack.
Yeah, have you seen this guy? He was a real estate agent. I've seen real estate commercials with this guy. You would look at him and go, I may use that guy as my real estate agent. He totally looked legit. An American guy, obviously American born. How do they reach these terrorist organizations, Hezbollah, Al Qaeda, ISIS? How do they reach American born citizens? And especially people that served in the military, and turn these guys?
Well, typically, typically there's a reason for the actor. It's what we can call him. There's a reason for the actor to go on the internet or go online and research something about a specific organization, right?
Okay.
I mean, if you want to go to work for Chase Bank, typically you do a little research on the bank before you go in for your interview.
Right.
Right. So you're smart about them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So these actors, typically something happens in their life to trigger that whole move toward the ISIS camp, Taliban camp, whatever. All these terrorist groups, they talk to each other. They share intel, they share training, they share our money. I mean, we give $80 million a month to the Taliban.
And we're still doing that. That blows my mind. That blows my mind.
We were giving them money when I was in Afghanistan in the early 2000s. I mean, we've been giving them money for years. So and this is something that we never find out, which drives me out of my mind. We need to find out the motive that caused him, or what happened in his life that caused him to switch to the dark side. And you never find out. We'll never find out. If he had a manifesto, we'll probably find out excerpts from the manifesto. We won't get the whole thing. We'll get it released and it'll be redacted at 90%. And, we'll never find out all of their TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, because that allows the terrorists to know that we know, and that allows the American people to know tactics, techniques, and procedures that we don't want the American public to know. It's just for operators and military type stuff.
As an operator, does it blow your mind that the Cybertruck bomber in Vegas was a high-level Green Beret?
Yeah, blows my mind. I'm trying to. He was a good guy. He was one hell of an operator with a phenomenal reputation. Was dealing with some PTSD and some other personal stuff. That's came out on the news. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. But I have a problem with the entire setup. I have a problem with the coincidence with the New Year's Eve truck driver. I have a problem with the coincidence that we're both Fort Braggers.
Yeah, they weren't there they weren't there at the same time, but they were both at Fort Bragg.
They were both at Fort Bragg. Yeah. And Fort Bragg has a history of terrorist
And when you say the similarities, are you meaning that they both used electric vehicles?
They both used electric vehicles. That sends a signal to me about, I don't know. It sends a signal, and I don't know whether it's a signal of they're trying to tell Elon Musk, piss on you, or the Trump administration piss on you, or the Biden administration, we don't like electric vehicles. There's something there with the electric vehicles, on top of the coincidence that they rented them both from the same online agency.
That's right. Yes.
I mean,
yes.
There's too many things for those two attacks not to be connected in my mind. That which tells me that somebody was controlling those two guys. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever find out what exactly happened in their minds or what exactly happened. But, the Cybertruck bomber reached out to Sean Ryan.
Yeah. Yes.
And several other famous podcasters.
Yeah, I saw that
sending
video.
Sending them these cryptic messages. Well, I talked to Sean, and Sean was like, bro, this blows my mind. We had no idea until days later that this was who this was, but he was sending me things trying to reach out, and Sean feels like I do. He was under duress.
Yeah.
Like somebody was doing something to get this guy to do what he did.
Right. And they claim that he had just broken up with his girlfriend, but I mean, it seems like there's got to be way more. To do a Cybertruck in front of the Trump I've stayed at that Trump hotel too. Wonderful hotel. And, to actually have all of that happen in succession. Supposedly he killed himself and then the bombs detonated. And ironically, due to the structure of the Cybertruck, it all went upwards. And those glass doors are, I've been in that valet. Those glass doors are so close when you pull up in the valet that it's unbelievable that nothing was broken.
Well, let me tell you this. He, as an 18 X-ray, he went through all the 18 series Special Forces training. That guy knew explosives. If he wanted to make a bomb to hurt somebody, unfortunately there was someone killed and several injured. But I mean, if he wanted to make a big statement, that guy could have put a bomb together with store-bought materials to take the whole front of that hotel down.
That's scary.
And he didn't do it.
Right.
So
do you think that's because the way that he perished in the car, like completely burning almost they couldn't even recognize him at one point? They had to really analyze who he was, and then they found some IDs and a passport, and they started to find some other materials. Yeah.
Isn't that convenient? His body's burned beyond recognition. Got to use dental records to come up with his ID and biometrics, because now we know the Army uses biometrics, so they can identify you from a skin sample, hair sample. That's unbelievable. Whatever. Yeah. Isn't it convenient that his records weren't burnt?
Yeah, crazy.
It doesn't make sense that there's no way anything survived in that inferno. I mean, to come out and have a license that has burnt edges on it, but everything else, all the data is perfect, and notice it was released that it was just his identification material that was spared in the blast. No credit cards, nothing like that, just his photo ID and his passport.
Now,
too convenient.
In succession with all of the government operators that come from all the elite different forces, like when you talk about like Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Beret, is there like a pecking order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Like, and could you lay that out for me if so?
I wouldn't call it a pecking order. There's an order of operation.
Okay.
So we know the SEALs are land, sea, and air. Your Rangers don't do anything involving civilians in the United States. They do train for some urban warfare, but they're more tip of the spear in a combat situation, maybe a hostage rescue like they did in Iran.
Gotcha.
Something like that. Green Berets, on the other hand, train for everything. You'll see on YouTube sometimes gets released where Delta Force or the Green Berets are doing an operation in urban downtown Miami. Yeah, but when they do those operations, they let law enforcement know, hey, we're going to be landing helicopters on your street. Unlike running drone operations where they don't let anybody know. Gotcha, so there's really not a pecking order. It comes down to what each group specializes in the most, whether they get the mission or not.
Now, do some guys cross over? Like, is there ever like a Green Beret that becomes a SEAL, or Delta Force that becomes an Army Ranger?
Well, most of the time, you see guys go from the SEALs to the Green Berets, or through the Green Beret program, and they get selected for Delta. And then these guys, especially Delta, SEAL Team 6 guys, the higher echelon guys, then they go into the OGA program, and they get with the CIA and their strike team. They get with these highly operative strike teams, and they're top secret guys, and they do top secret stuff all over the world and in the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting. You've seen a lot of these guys pop up on YouTube as of late. You mentioned Sean Ryan, John McAfee. I can't get enough of him. The Baghdad. What is he? The sheriff of Baghdad. These guys. Have you ever come across any of those guys?
Oh yeah, yeah. I just talked to Sean 2 days ago.
So it's that small of a world with everybody. I know Tim Kennedy is in that world as well, who's kind of under a little scrutiny right now.
Yeah, this scrutiny that it just amazes me that I mean I read what Tim posted and
Yeah.
I hadn't reached out yet, but I read what he posted, and nowhere in there did I get that he was trying to say he had a V and he doesn't have a V. And, I mean, get a life, people. It just blows my mind.
I met that dude so many times, and he's such a bad dude, man. Like, as far as like just a badass, just 100% American, one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet in your life. I mean, I found him to be that way. I always met him in mixed martial arts situations, like when I do the commentary and stuff for different organizations. I've met Tim through different friends, and I mean, just always a stand-up guy, very cool and willing to train with anybody.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Most of these guys, it bothers me that most of these guys come out and do these podcasts or write these books, especially if they're mission oriented.
Yeah.
Or, that's not our job. Our job is not to do a mission and then write a book and get rich about it.
Sure.
We're at one point in time, I still am under a top secret poly SCI clearance. I'm not supposed to write a book when my clearance is over. It's kind of bugs me that some of these guys do that. Now, Sean, I have a little different opinion about his podcast because he has some guests on there, kind of like I am, that talk about things that we know to be true, and he's done a pretty good podcast. So
I also feel like he's validating and uplifting the spirits of some of these guys that you can tell who have not only, like yourself, fought for our freedom quite literally, but have also suffered the severe consequences of fighting for our freedom.
Oh yeah. He's done some. I think that's why I respect him and what he's doing. He's not only there he's not there just for money and being rich and famous. He's there because he actually cares. He's been a guy that suffered many years himself, and he found his way out and found his way, found his calling, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, sure.
Which helps him therapeutically. It's pretty simple. I do these podcasts, and I get some therapy out of it because I can't sit around and talk to my neighbor about these things in person.
Sure, right.
So, it's therapeutic sometimes to get this stuff off your chest.
And even to be a guy that's allotted this super high clearance with the government, where, your super top secret clearance, it's got to be a burden to bear, no matter how much of a badass that you are as a special operator or just as a human being. It's got to be a big burden.
Well, if you take the career itself is a burden. I honestly wish I would have chosen a different career path because I wouldn't have missed the majority of 30-year marriage. And I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm still married. And I have two great kids. So I'm one of the lucky ones that has survived that somehow. By the grace of God, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the divorce rate's got to be astronomical, right?
Oh, it's astronomical, especially if you're mission capable all the time. You're gone all the time. I'm gone from home now.
Yeah,
calling you from another location. So it's just amazing that it's still there. I still have what it takes. Most of these guys can't handle all of this stuff, and I don't know. And quite frankly, I don't know how I've handled it all these years. I just put things in a little box and then close the doors.
Yeah.
So I think I'm pretty astute when it comes to the PTSD and knowing what it can cause, and just got to keep operating. I mean, I don't even know if I'll ever retire. We'll find out.
Well, going forward into 2025, here we are at the beginning, and we've kind of discussed some of the sleeper cells and things that could happen. What is your advice to the American public as they watch this podcast, as they watch the Loper Show, and they're listening to what a special operator Jake has to say? What is your advice going forward into 2025 for everyone?
Well, I think we've already heard it on the media, but it's been my advice for years. You know that from when we first met.
Yeah.
My advice has been to always be ready. And people say, well, what do you mean by always be ready? Well, for instance, if you're driving in your car and you're in traffic, leave enough distance between you and the vehicle in front of you for you to get out if you have to. Use your car as a battering ram to get out of a bad situation. If you're in a crowd, I never go to where crowds are. You won't see me in a movie theater. You won't see me standing in line for a concert.
Interesting.
You won't see me do any of that. But that's because I'm super aware and super prepared. It doesn't allow me to do certain things in my life. I won't go to certain states or certain cities because I can't carry a weapon legally. Now, I still go there and I still carry, but it's only been a couple times that I've done that.
Does it apply differently for you being a government contractor than it would a normal American? A citizen?
Say again?
Does the rules like you can't carry a gun in this city or in this state, does that apply to government contractors or is it just applying to civilians?
No, it just applies most of the time to civilians.
Okay.
Because we'll just show our identification if asked or if something happens.
Yeah.
And then I had an incident in New York City. Shots were fired, bad guys down. Cops rolled in, flashed our identification. They said, okay, guys, get out of here. We'll take care of it. Just that simple.
Gotcha.
And we have a command structure where if something happens like that, local law enforcement can get on the phone with command. Command will say, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. It needs to be over. Take care of it.
Gotcha.
And that's what they do.
All right.
So, for 2025, I would remain super vigilant. I would carry a weapon with me everywhere legally, I'm going to say, for the normal citizen.
Yes.
Everywhere legally that you could. Have some training. Have some food stocked up. And I'm not talking about 72 hours. I'm talking about a month's worth of food, minimum. Month's worth of toilet paper if you're in that mindset.
And let's not say that can't happen. You know what I mean? Because we've seen that happen already. Yeah,
that's right. And most people can afford to buy things periodically to get their stock level up to where they need to.
Yeah.
If we have an attack on our infrastructure and all the power goes out and it goes beyond 3 days, what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, it's going to be mass hysteria.
It's going to be crazy. And who's going to come out first? All the bad guys.
Yeah.
And the police are here to protect us, but when is there ever a law enforcement officer around when you need him? Usually never.
Yeah, well, especially
Unless
since
you're real lucky.
a certain part of the country spent so much money trying to defund the police in certain cities.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you are your own protector. My biggest fear when I'm away from home is I'm not there protecting mine. That's now I have things in place, backup procedures, if you will,
sure,
that have my family taken care of. But I still worry because I'm not there to do it on my own, because that's just the man that I am. But I think super vigilance is in order. I think if you're walking down the street and you see a cooler on the sidewalk and no one's around paying attention to that cooler, call it in, because something may be in there.
How about people check that cooler in New Orleans? Like several people they saw.
They checked it. Yeah.
Crazy.
And then they just went on.
Yeah.
I don't, that's what I'm talking. We're so, what's a good word? We're so lax in this country. You and I can preach this stuff all day long.
Yeah.
You can have 10 million listeners to your podcast And one of those 10 million might do something about it. I mean, it's just amazing to me, the mindset that the American people have when it comes to their safety.
It's almost a selfishness too. Like, I don't want any trouble. I don't want to deal with this. I'm just going to carry on, man. I got enough trouble going on in my life.
Well, yeah. And I realize that. I mean, all of us have life situations going on, but at the same time, I guess there's just different spirits about people. I have a protector's type spirit.
Sure. Absolutely.
So that's why I've done what I've done all my life. You have an entertainment spirit, it's just that simple. That's what you do. And you're good at it, obviously. So,
I appreciate that.
I think these people, it's going to take another large attack for the American people to wake up. 9/11 did not do it.
Man. I mean, we had never been more together than after 9/11. I mean, to be where we are today and in the last few years, and when you go back to the few months after, 6 months, even after 9/11, the way the country was so together, the way the country was so in sync, in lockstep with each other. And then to fast forward to today, like where we could not be farther apart, not even just politically. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like with your neighbors. Like most people don't even know their neighbors, Yeah,
I know that. I know that personally. I've made it well, you've been to my house.
Yeah.
So you remember how that's set up.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know my neighbors that many years ago. And I made it a decision to know my neighbors. Well, can I tell you how many of them don't want to be known?
That's probably true.
I go up and I introduce myself and I say, hey, I live over here. Just wanted to let you know I'm here. If you need something, they're like, well, okay. And I wouldn't even get a name. I'd have to say, well, can I have your name? No, we don't want to get involved. And I'm like, what? Get involved in what? I'm just introducing yourself as my neighbor.
And being neighbors?
Yeah,
right. That's wild. That is so wild.
But it's society today. Look at the people that instead of rushing in and trying to put that woman out on fire, in the on the subway, they took video.
Right.
I can't imagine myself not trying to push her to the ground.
No, me neither. Yeah.
And try to put her fire out, roll her around, do something.
The idea that guy was able to fan the flames too with his jacket was insane to me. Watching that, that was the worst part of the whole thing.
That was insane. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
That's how much time he had. Yeah, it's
so yeah. It's I don't know, man. The mental disability issues that we have in this country need to be addressed on a large scale.
Yes.
But that's also going to take people who are aware of, hey, this homeless guy's doing this, so he needs a little help. So somebody might come in and try to help that guy or take him in for an observation for 72 hours or something. We need something on that end of things, in my opinion, to stave off some of this stuff. Now, this guy that lit that lady on fire was, an illegal. What his motives were, I don't know, but obviously he's full of evil. I'd love to know if he is associated with any of these known groups that are out there. But we'll probably never know that either.
Yeah. Man, Special Operator Jake, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. I mean, super informative, and I really hope that people take away from this episode as much as I have. I mean, every time we get a chance to connect, I always learn something, and it's oftentimes I'm reminded of things, like stay vigilant. And the one thing I'll add to what you were saying is stay in shape. I think not only for mental health, but just stay in shape, train martial arts, do something that gets you out. Play pickleball. You know what I mean? Just do something to get the endorphins going, right?
Get off the fucking couch.
No doubt. No doubt, my brother. Hey, man, thank you so much for your service, number one. Right, and thank you so much for being a guest today on the show. Special Operator Jake for being on the show. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, brother. Talk to you soon.
And I want to thank everybody for tuning in today, episode number 6. I mean, this one, one for the history books. Next week, one of the best names and one of the biggest names in health and fitness, Corey Gregory, will be on the show with us, and he's going to give us a lowdown on exactly how we can all get in shape and stay in shape for 2025, and I can't wait to bring that show to you. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, let people know Loper is back, and there's a bunch of episodes to catch up on, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Loper Show.